I've never seen it
Hope I have the
like
right
it did in
room.
LA. It was
Really?
dumping all weekend, just poured. It was really weird.
That usually happens when I go down.
I guess Vegas got hit even harder.
Really?
Yeah, I see some things on the news, some clips of this water just running down where that new Lynx is, where they built that new high roller
Yeah.
down there. That's the street called Lynx down there with all the shops, and there's just water a foot deep running down.
Yeah, they're not set up for that at all.
No. Neither's LA.
And traffic's already bad,
Oh.
as soon as there's a drop of rain,
They don't
like.
Nobody knows how to drive. They're even trying to find out where their wipers are out on their cars.
Good. There you go.
All right.
All right.
How are we? How are we in the room? Are we good to go?
Yes, we are live streaming.
Okay, wonderful. Well, welcome to the Oregon State Parks and Recreation Commission November meeting, virtually this time. I think we will go ahead and start our meeting with a round of introductions. I do want to highlight that we have folks in Salem and folks in Eastern Oregon and folks in Southern Oregon and all around. So we'll go ahead and start with the commissioners, and I will turn it over to Dave to introduce yourself and just pick somebody next to introduce after yourself.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dave Perlow. I'm Commissioner from District 1, and professionally, I'm the CEO of Explore Tualatin Valley. It's great to see everyone on a sunny morning, and I'll pass over to Joel. I thought I saw him.
Joel Conder, Commissioner, Judicial District 5. I am live in Salem.
Let's go to, let's see, who else? Commissioner Izumi.
Morning, everyone. My apologies, my camera is not detecting video, but my name is Betty Izumi, and I'm the commissioner from the Portland area in District 3.
Thank you.
And
Commissioner Spence. Commissioner Spence, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi. Sorry, I didn't know if you called on me. Stu Spence, professionally Parks and Recreation Director for the City of LeGrand, in LeGrand with Deputy Director Matt Rippey. We just got lonely, so I drove across town. Let's see, Commissioner representing east of the Cascades, is that right? Maybe? Yeah. And who else? I'm not sure.
I think I got everybody. Myself, I'm Commissioner Hill. I chair the OPRD Commission. I am Commissioner from Congressional District 2. I'm in Glide today. So I will go ahead and pass it over to Lisa if you want to introduce yourself, and then the folks in the room if they want to introduce themselves too.
Good morning, everyone. Lisa Sumption, the director here at Oregon Parks and Recreation Department. And I'm going to pass it around the room, but I do want to make a special introduction. We have our brand new Human Resource Director, Suzanne, here with us. And I'd love for her to introduce herself next and say hi to all of you. And you'll get to see her, get to know her smiling face here a lot more in the next couple months.
And good morning, I'm Suzanne Harpel, and I'm the HR Director for an OPRD now. I have roughly 30 years of public sector experience, and I'm excited to be here and figure out exactly how I can best support the agency moving forward. So thank you for having me.
Welcome, welcome.
Stephanie.
Good morning, Stephanie Coons, Deputy Director for Business Administration. Glad to be here.
Denise Warburton, Executive Assistant to the Director and the Commission.
There you are.
Katie. Here, Government Relations and Interim Communications Manager.
And our esteemed legal counsel.
I'm Steve Shipsey, and I'm counsel to the commission and the department.
I think we're all accounted for, Chair Hill.
Great. So we will go ahead and move on with our commission meeting business agenda. So we have approval of the September 2025 minutes. This needs a motion unless there are any changes. I'll accept a motion on this.
Chair Hill, I'm happy to put forward a motion to approve the September meeting minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner Perillo. Do I have a second?
second,
All right, all those in favor of approving the September 2025 minutes signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? None. They are passed. We also need a motion to approve today's agenda. I don't think there are any changes to the agenda, so it should stand as you've all received it. So I could entertain a motion for that as well.
I'll entertain it. Commissioner Spence.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Perlow. All those in favor of approving today's agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Hearing none, so approved. All right, the next item on our agenda is public comment, but I don't think we've received any today. I just want to confirm that.
We have no public comment.
Okay, wonderful. All right, we are quickly moving along here.
We'll be done by, I think.
So we will move on to item 3 on our agenda, the director's update with Lisa.
Awesome. Okay, I don't even know where to start, but I'll start with the thing that I think we all want to know the most about. Well, I was on vacation last week where it was a little bit of an interruption and lots of conversations with the governor's office and with Liz. And I think you all have seen the press release and got the email, but I will be heading over to the Oregon Department of Transportation January 2nd to help with the transition as the director that's currently there is leading the agency. The negotiation was that I get to come back. It's just to help with the transition, to help get the new director in place. Liz has promised me she will do everything she can to get me back. But so I don't know if you all have questions about that, but I have asked Stephanie to step up into the director's office role because we just started our strategic initiatives office to try to get our strategic plan operationalized and get some of these things moving forward to help us be more financially solvent in the future. I made that really clear to the governor's office that like we can't let Parks budget and Parks suffer by having me exit the agency in this particular moment. They've been very supportive. Jared's going to step up and he's going to take over the central business service side of the house. So he'll learn a lot more about the administrative side of the house. And between Matt, Stephanie, and JR and Suzanne and Kristen, we've been training for this moment for a long time. And we thought that we had a couple more years, but this would be a great succession plan for everybody to jump in and see if we can run the marathon together. And I'll stay engaged with the team. I'll be talking to them daily. I'm still going to do all of the legislative stuff. I'm still going to be working with our public-private partners and with all of you and let the 4 of them have as much opportunity to dive in and learn as they can. And then we'll revisit it maybe the end of January because I have a feeling it might be a little more consuming than I've been told. So we may have to pivot and readjust. So I'll just ask for some patience as we navigate. I'll pause there and see if questions, and then I'll talk a little bit more about our budget and where we are.
Commissioner Perlow, go ahead.
Director Sumpin, thank you for acting holistically for Oregon, I guess is the first thing. Secondly, I'm just curious if there's anything we on the commission can do to help support both you and Parks during this transition period. It's kind of unexpected for all of us, but it's like.
Yeah, no, and as we actually had the opportunity to meet this weekend, since I wasn't here last week, to meet in person and kind of talk about what pieces are here and there. So I think as we figure out what we need, I'll definitely be reaching out to all of you to figure out how you can support us best as we try to figure out how to transition here. But I made tap Liz to talk to the ODOT commission chair as well, so that way we're all kind of on the same page as we navigate through this.
Yeah, this is hard for all of us, I think, because Lisa is so wonderful and obviously acknowledged by everybody in the state and the governor's office as being an amazing leader. And I think ODOT is in its own world of I don't know how to put it, transition right now. And they're hoping for some stabilized leadership over there. And we don't want to lose Lisa. I will go to bat and drag her back if I have to with my claws. But if she needs to go help out, she needs to go help out. And she's built such an amazing team, and our commission is very stable and supportive, and so I think we'll be okay. But yeah, we're all going to have to step up and figure out how we can support in this time where OPRD is also having budget issues and needs to stabilize a little bit itself. So with that, if anybody has questions too, I can speak to folks as well in the future or right now.
Great.
Okay, in case, I think you all were on the email from Commissioner Givens. She's got a lot going on personally, and so she has resigned her position on the commission. So Liz and I will be working with the governor's office to see if we can get somebody nominated. I think the nominations are due next week, but with this transition, they've said that we could have till like the first week in December. So we'll need to be looking at our coastal representatives. So we're on it, but I just want to make sure I acknowledge that and thank her for her service. I'm actually going to miss her advice and her counsel, and having her be in the room. She was very helpful to me in lots of different ways, probably all of you as well. And she sends her regrets, but she's got some stuff she really needs to focus on right now. Okay, I'm gonna talk about stuff I really wanted to talk about if I wouldn't have had all the distractions, but I just Sarah's gonna come in and do a budget update here in a little bit, but I just want to talk to you more high level about the overall budget situation. So and some of this is gonna feel repetitive, but I want to keep talking about it so that way everybody's on the same page and that you don't forget all the incredible, wonderful and hard things that you guys have done in the last year and a half. So we made the decision at the last meeting that we knew the budget was another probably $15 million in the hole. So we really curtailed travel, moved a lot of our in-person meetings to virtual, including our commission meetings here for the next at least 2. Our all managers meeting is usually in person. A lot of our trainings are in person. We're going to be doing those virtually here to just try to help save a little bit of money. We have a pause on our hiring. It's not that we're frozen. I don't want people to freak out and think it's not, but we're taking like a 90-day just breather to make sure, or reevaluating each of those positions to say, is there another way to do the work? Could we streamline this work? Is there an opportunity to share this work with another agency? So we're doing those things. And then you all know very well that we changed the fees last January from $5 to $10 for parking. The camping fees went up. We're adding dynamic pricing, or a version of dynamic pricing for 26. That all went into effect. Some of the other things that have happened here more recently is we have changes in our free fee waivers. So Green Friday, first day hikes, and State Parks Day, we did parking and camping. We're no longer going to have free camping on State Parks Day. We'll have the free parking, but not the free camping. And so on the Green Friday and the first day hikes, we'll still have ranger-led hikes, and we'll announce where those places are. So there's still services for folks, but the parking fee will apply. You guys will be discussing today Division 15 rules, and that's our special access program. So that's currently it's all U.S. veterans with a service-related disability, and we'll be looking to take that to only Oregon residents, which is what other state park systems do. And then in addition to that, it's the foster and adoptive families. And right now there's 10 days a month of free camping, and so we're going to be having a conversation about 10 days a year. And so right now we've waived just over 4 million, and we think that'll save about $2 million in fee waivers, and then we can focus on waiving fees for other folks that we would love to have out in our parks. And then I'm gonna, if Matt is okay, I'm gonna flip over to have Matt talk about some of the tough decisions we've made to help with the budget decisions on Go Bonds and Heritage Hub. If those two for me, that would be fantastic.
Yeah. Good morning, Chair Hill, Director Sumption, members of the commission. For the record, Matt Rippey with the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department. And as Director Sumption mentioned, I just wanted to give a quick update on where we are with our general obligation bond projects and Heritage Hub. I was going to give a little bit of background on the general obligation bond projects because many of you weren't here in 2021 when Senate Bill 5506 was passed that gave our agency $50 million in general obligation bonds. One of the most, besides the obvious gift of $50 million from the legislature, one of the greatest gifts of that was the general language that funding be used to focus on capital improvements generally across the agency. There weren't specific projects tied to the language in the bill. So as an agency, we developed a list of priorities focused on kind of 3 main areas. The first was backlog of maintenance. The second was expansion projects. And then the third was tied to historic resources. Through this past October of 2025, we've completed 3 of the major Go Bond projects that were all focused on backlog. The first was at Beverly Beach, utility upgrade, park-wide upgrades. That project has been completed. Nehalem Bay was another project that has been completed. Again, focused on backlog and maintenance, utility upgrades, restroom, those sorts of things. And then the third was the guardhouse up at Fort Stevens that I think you all saw when we were up for the commission meeting there in September. A fourth project is on its way to being completed, and that is the upgrades to the utilities and campground at Fort Stevens State Park. Again, I know we looked at the periphery of that project. It's a massive project, one that has been on the backlog books for a long time. So those were the main projects kind of in that backlog category. As we've seen over the course since that bill was passed in 2021, I think, you know, we can all acknowledge we've seen an exponential increase in the price for services and supplies, whether that be a consultant to do design work all the way through construction costs. The gap between the funding that we have and the cost of those projects, that gap just kind of continues to grow. And given the outlook of the agency's finances, we knew we had some pretty hard decisions in front of us. And so the agency came together over the last probably month with some of our construction project managers, our exec team, kind of folks again across the agency, to have some pretty difficult conversations and hard decisions around, do we invest in expansion work, or is this the opportunity to potentially look at things a little bit differently and look at the funding that we have left in general obligation bonds and invest that more into continued backlog maintenance? And the decision was to do that, to pull back from expanding our services. Again, given the financial outlook of the agency, it just didn't make sense to expand right now when we could use that funding, because of the language in the bill, to invest in the backlog of maintenance. And so I just want to go through the projects that will continue and the projects that we're going to put on pause. We have two, other than the projects I already mentioned, that are completed or about to be completed. We're going to continue with the Cape Lookout campground utility upgrades. Again, this is existing infrastructure that's just past its lifespan and needs to be upgraded. The parking lot in the day use area, the electrical in the campground there. And then the other that's going to continue to move forward is the Silver Falls Visitor Center. This was a facility that came with a piece of property that we purchased several years ago. We've been investing in that piece of property or in that facility over the last probably 5 to 7 years, and we're just going to finish up that work and be able to open that building. So those are the two projects that are going to continue. There are 4 projects, expansion projects, that we're going to put on pause. And when I say put on pause, it's indefinitely. There are a couple, I think we can start doing some outreach and see if we can raise funds from some of our partners to help us complete those. But I think it's pretty clear right now, we know we don't have the resources to kind of continue with these. The first of those is the Cam Wah-Chung Visitor Center and Collections Building. I'm actually going to be meeting with some of our internal folks over the next couple of weeks to see if we can put a plan together to raise funds for the collections building. Because if you've been to Cam Wah-Chung, you know the importance of that place and the importance of those collections. I think we'll have pretty good traction and pretty good support to help raise funds to be able to at least build the collections building and preserve that collection. The next expansion project that we're pausing is the campground expansion at Silver Falls. We're going to put that on hold. The campground expansion at Champoeg is another one we're going to put on hold. And then finally, the Smith Rock Visitor Center. Again, with those 4 projects, you know, looking at our financial outlook, we just feel it would be better to reinvest that money back into the existing facilities. So with that, I don't know if there are any questions or comments. We've sent out a news release. Clearly, these are tough decisions, but I think at the end of the day, you know, one of the things we've talked about is the hope is that the folks that come after us will think we did the right thing by using that existing funding and putting it back into our system and continuing with that backlog maintenance. But I'm happy to answer any questions or take any comments.
And the thing I think we should clarify, Matt, is talk a little bit about the FIP, the Facility Investment Program dollars that were coupled up with the GO bonds.
Yeah.
Because that's really the big driver behind this.
Yes. Thank you. So we had obligated about $5 million of our facility investment program, which is a recurring maintenance fund that we use with lottery dollars every biennium to help that backlog of maintenance. We had obligated $5 million of that this biennium and $7 million of it next biennium, again, towards these expansion projects. And so we were able to pull that back, use that for agency savings. And then what that left was about $10 million of general obligation bond funding that's unspent. Thanks for asking that question, Lisa. I meant to go into this. So that's the 10 million is what we're going to use to invest back into the system. We've been meeting, JR and I met with our park improvement manager yesterday. We're going to have some exec team meetings and some other meetings with our construction project managers and region directors to identify what are those highest backlog needs. We create a list every biennium of those backlog needs that we tie that facility investment project funding to. So we've got the 25-27 biennium projects outlined, funded. We're probably going to be pulling from our next biennium's prioritized list of backlog maintenance and using that $10 million to start chipping away at that. So thank you. I hope that answered your question. Okay, perfect. Thanks for asking.
It helped us realize about $5 million of savings in this current biennium, so that helps fill that hole, so we can try to keep everything we have open and all the people we have employed. Heritage Hub.
Yes. So Cherry Hill, did you have a question? I saw you on mute.
No, I was just going to see if anybody else had questions around that. I don't see any. Go ahead, Matt.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then the next project that we reduced was Heritage Hub. And what this is a software system that will help kind of get us into the current century of software for tracking archaeological permitting, some of our grants, our historic resources kind of across the state, all related to the State Historic Preservation Office and our heritage outreach programs. We originally were going to build a system that could do kind of all of the things. So it would do the archaeological permitting. It would meet all the Section 106 federal requirements for cultural resource and historic resource protection. It was also going to include some of our state requirements around our grants, outreach, some of our historical resources. The price tag for that project was, including staff time, was $4.5 to $5 million. It was an incredibly expensive project. We have scaled that back to focus solely on the Section 106, those federal requirements for cultural and historic resource protection. So it'll include the archaeological permitting. So the price tag is much lower at about $1.5 million. We've also been able to find some grants that will help kind of plug the gaps in that to the tune of about $800,000. And so the price to the agency is going to be significantly less. Part of the reason it's so much less is because it is focused on the federal requirements. So the companies that have developed this system for other states, it's the same whether you're in Pennsylvania, Oregon, Texas, those federal requirements are all the same. So the system is kind of a plug and play, if you will, and is set up to kind of work and, within existing kind of constraints around the federal requirements. So we will be able to add those other components over time as funding allows, as potentially partners are able to help us fund some of those programs. But this will at least get us kind of off the ground. And just from a pragmatic standpoint, it is going to make the life of our SHPO staff so much easier. And for the folks across the state that have to interface with SHPO, it's going to make their lives easier as well, because it'll all be automated. You won't be able to submit a permit until it's complete. Right now, there's a lot of back and forth with that because folks don't always understand the requirements of an application and those sorts of things. So anyways, I'm happy to answer any questions on that as well. The good news is, I keep trying to underscore this with folks, we're still moving forward with getting a new system. It's just not going to be quite what we originally anticipated it to be, but the fact that we're still moving forward with it, I think shows, the kind of the desire of the agency to continue this work. So I'm happy to answer any questions or take any comments as well. Okay, thanks so much.
Going back to the Go bonds,
Sure.
projects that are put on hold, how does that look in terms of the work that's already been done around kind of budget modeling and kind of that future? Is it just kind of shelved and then we have to redo those pieces depending on when we get funding? What are the thinking around that?
Yeah, it's a great question. With each of those 4 projects that we were pausing, we're going to do them to the point of where we'll have a set of plans and kind of be ready to go so that if that funding comes through, whether it's internal or from partners, we'll be able to start kind of putting shovels in the ground. The only thing that would slow it down is some of the permits, we'll have to redo some of the permitting potentially, but that's fairly minor. The planning itself is going to be done and ready to go. And again, kind of going back to Kam Wah Chung, I think in particular, we'll have a set of plans that we can start talking to partners about. Again, everybody kind of acknowledges the importance of Kam Wah Chung. It's a one of a kind, I think, kind of internationally. And so I think we'll get some good backing to help us keep that project moving forward.
That's great. Is there a Friends of Smith Rock or something around that is helping with fundraising? I'm just curious. I'm not aware of what's going on out there.
We don't have a friends group like we do at some of the other properties, at Smith Rock in particular. And so that one, I'm not sure if we'll partner with potentially a business to help us with something like that, to be able to, run something out of the park. I'm not, that one, I think there's still some questions around exactly what would be the best fit for Smith Rock.
Yeah.
And there'll be some conversations, I think, with the community and within the agency for that one. But again, it's a pretty incredible opportunity there at Smith Rock for sure. And Lisa, I don't know if you have other thoughts on that one.
Yeah, and so much has changed since we scoped these projects, right? Now at the time we weren't even looking at it, like now we're talking about profitability and even breaking even. And so I think even in those design standards, like looking at like rather than a visitor center, an event center where you could actually use it to host events and actually make money in some of these places. So I think there's some different opportunities that we can, now that we know what we know today, I think we could look differently at that particular project. Kam Wah Chung has a friends group. They're small, not as mighty, but I do think using Kam Wah Chung as a model to bring in public and private and other opportunities to see if we can fundraise for it. There's lots of interest already. So I think trying it there is a good place, and then we can expand from there. The beautiful part is the planning and design will be ready. So if we do get the money to pick it back up, we're good to go.
Yeah.
We were hesitant about even doing that. We're like, we need to spend the money of finishing the plan and design, so we're ready to go.
Yeah. Thank you. Any questions from folks on the? No, I don't see.
One quick question, Chair Hilton. No, I'm going to call you Matt Rippey squared because your thing says Matt Rippey. Hey, on the 2 campground expansions, I'm just curious. Has any of that revenue, that's not going to be there from the expansions already been? Has to be backed out of future budgets, or is that just way too early?
Thanks, Commissioner Perillo. It's too early. We really weren't starting to calculate some of the revenue. We weren't counting on that revenue, I guess I should say, in terms of into the future. And as we started to make those calculations, one of the reasons we pulled back on that project is because the return on investment was it was going to take quite a bit of time before we realized, kind of a revenue over what we were expending on the actual project itself. That was part of the reason we decided to pause that one and the Silver Falls as well. Thank you.
Okay. Lisa, anything else?
One more. I'll save this one so Sarah doesn't have to do it. So one of the other tough decisions that the agency has made is we will be transferring our payroll team from Parks over to the Department of Administrative Services. So I think if you don't all know, there's been a lot of conversation since we got the Workday system. One of the things that happened with collective bargaining this time is that we are going to go from monthly payroll to bi-monthly, and DAS currently has 60 agencies, including ODFW, or Oregon Department of Forestry, and Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, Revenue, Employment. And so we just feel like that transition will be managed a little bit different, and we'll put that responsibility on the Department of Administrative Services. The sad part about that is they have let us know that they only need 2 FTE to manage that, and we have 4 FTE here. So we'll be working with the union and talking about what that looks like. So we'll keep folks posted, but that is, I think, the only other thing that has happened since the last time we were together. Looking around the room, am I missing anything? There's so much going on, you guys. But those are the big things I wanted to make sure you were aware of. Sarah's gonna give you kind of budget number stuff, but I wanted you to better understand some of the hard decisions we've had to make lately.
That's tough. It's all tough. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, well, on that note, let's move over to Sarah, who probably won't be giving us any good news either, but she always does it with a smile, so.
Well, can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, Chair Hill, Vice Chair Izumi, Director Assumption, and members of the commission. I'm Sarah Head, your Chief Financial Officer. And Chair Hill is right. I'm probably not going to give you any amazing news today, but I am going to talk to you about the revenue work that we've done, so you know how we're progressing on the things that you're approving. And it helps you understand as you work through these other changes that are coming up where we are still. And then depending on how much time we have at the end, I'm going to try and talk to you a little bit about the 27-29 biennium. So let's take a look at fees, because I know that I get questions all the time and you want to know that feedback loop on how things are doing. What we're doing is we're comparing to LAB. So when we built the budget, how were things going at that time? And on this slide, in the green, we have the lottery. Okay.
We are not seeing your screen.
Oh, you're not. Okay. It's probably because we're using Zoom and that's very different for me, right? There you are. But I want you to see this. How about now?
Yes, it's just starting. Yes, we can see the title screen.
Okay, so you can see my slides now.
Yep.
Yes.
Much better. Okay. Well, then the conversation about green and teal is going to make more sense now. Here we go. Okay, so when I wrote the brief, the state forecast had not come out yet. It came out this morning, and lottery pretty much held steady, which I took as a huge blessing. I mean, I thought that was a gift. What did not hold steady for lottery was future biennia. So it doesn't look good in the future, but at least this biennia didn't deteriorate anymore. So the numbers and the percentages, they're all based on the data that I had before today. But the green is lottery, okay? And so what we can see is as lottery compresses and the park user fees, the teal that we're working on, it's shifting the percent of our revenue, which is good. We need that top section, that teal, to grow big time, because our spending power in lottery, even at flat dollars, our spending power is deteriorating because we all know that costs of labor are increasing. And we have a lot of FTE in both park user fees and lottery. We have pressure there to keep our staff. So let's talk more about the teal, and we'll dig into it. What we're seeing is, of course, camping fees, right? That is a big portion of our money. And our projections are showing that we're going to be about 3 million higher than 24. So we're looking at 24 and 25, and look at how flat they were. And then 26. So 26 is starting to show the change in the fees and the work that we have been doing agency-wide, frontline staff. I am amazed at the amount of change that this organization is implementing so quickly. They talk to you about the geo bonds. They talk to you about the software stop on the Heritage Hub. It is amazing to see the work that they do. When we dig into these categories, we will see the other components. And I know that I want to get you to the bigger picture, but this is the hot topic, right? So we have to talk about this a little bit. We've been looking at revenue from reservations. Our reservation process and fees and that kind of thing hadn't been updated in a long time, and maybe had some things in it that weren't a great incentive to manage relationships between our customers and parks. So we had visitors who were looking around saying, why is this empty? No one's in it. Why won't you let me be in it? So some of this was about revenue, but it was also about improving the visitor experience. And then annual parking permits. You've heard us talk about how the fees on the parking permits for annual will go up January 1st. Those have been selling like crazy because they're still at the older price. But we're probably not going to call that a trend. That's just because there's an anomaly in our pricing right now. And I mean, people are excited. Okay. Daily parking permits. Now, this is where there's a lot of work to across the entire agency. This is where we brought on over 20 parks, implement codes, and that's gone pretty well. Good visitor experience occurring there. And we're seeing that there's a 77% growth over 2025. So we're looking at all of these and saying, okay, yes, our user fees are up. We're doing great work. Overnight, same thing. 6% growth over last year is what we're seeing. Okay. As we go through the biennium, of course, Mother Nature plays a role in this and all sorts of things, but we're trying to use some of the same assumptions in customer behavior and how things will work out. So you can see 25, 26, how those figures are changing and how much camping and overnight are doing for us. That will continue throughout the biennium, we hope, right? And into next biennium and on, because we're also thinking about each one of these changes as a layer for our future sustainability. QR codes. I'm going to show you this and we'll talk about it just a little bit because we get so many questions. The darker sections are weekends, right? Because weekends are when more people have time to get out and go to the parks. And what we're seeing is that the revenue went up significantly. There is a little bit of an anomaly in the data because an existing park that was already charging is in this data. And so we would have gotten that revenue through the clunky machines and customers around QR codes. But what we are hoping is that this continues, and it should also improve customer experience in parks with lines where they're trying to get to our existing machines. A bunch of signs, QR codes. Also, instead of paying when you get to the park, you could now pay online while you're drinking your coffee before you put the kids in the car. The experience is starting to change, and we are removing the barriers for people that do want to support and pay and make it an easy transition. Questions about QR codes? No questions about that. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about where we're headed. Okay, because I think we're doing okay for time, and I think that's important. We've been talking to you about the gap, and we've been speaking as if we had full information about all our revenue changes when we built the budget. Okay, so agency request budget at July of 24 had a $27 million gap. Don't worry, story gets a little better. Then when the governor's recommended budget went together, it was 18 million. Then the legislatively adopted budget was 15 million. Now, to be clear, the way this happened, there weren't big cuts, there wasn't things like that. It was adjusting revenue. Some of the things that we're doing and showing you in the forecast now were known at the time, and they went into the budget. Okay. And then some we've been adding in now. So it's an interesting combination of all these layers and timing. So 15 million for LAB. And then now we're looking at 8. And that is better than what I said to you last time. So we are looking at this gap. And I want to talk about this gap and the vocabulary of it, because there's different ways to talk about your agency and break even. Okay. So in this, we're talking about known. that these changes were going to be approved and implemented in these timelines, it could have been all built into the budget. And the budget would have just shown this gap of the 8 million. Okay. So think of the budget as the plan for your biennium, right? It's the runway. When you build a runway for a plane, I don't fly, so forgive me if this doesn't work, but it's an idea I have. When you build that runway, you have to make it long enough to land any plane that you've said can come to that airport, right? There has to be some flexibility. And maybe the weather is perfect and it's sunny and you didn't need it as long. Maybe it's windy and it's stormy, okay? So that's your budget. And here we're talking about budget. And we do have to talk about budget because our oversight agencies are looking at, can we build our budget for 27-29 in a way that they're happy with? Right? And remember, in all this revenue work, our costs are still increasing. So rolling it forward is a big deal. Team is looking at that. That's another conversation. But we're also looking at forecast. And when I think about forecast, in here, forecast, we haven't talked really about expense forecast. And when I say forecast, I mean where, with all the information I have today, where do I think this plane will land? What are the financial statements for parks going to look like at the end of the biennium, right? And what we haven't talked about in commission meetings as much, because there's a lot of detail and a lot of changes, is our leadership has tightened up expectations of managers. If you carry vacancies, great. You will not get to spend that money in a different way. We need that. We need to tighten the reins. We need to, without harming the customer experience to the best of our abilities, change the trajectory of our expenses, right? So it's really hard for us to know at this moment how much all of these changes and all of these conversations and all of the financial foundations initiative work is going to change our underspending. Because when I look at last biennium and how 23-25 ended, I am very hopeful that we will underspend our budget more so, and that we will reap savings in other areas. And sadly, these conversations about construction and that kind of thing, that will help with that underspending, right? But I don't know yet how much. So this is budget. If we say, okay, this is how the expenses were, and we're also looking at forecasting and saying, okay, what about this and what about this? When we look at the agency's forecast, we think that we're getting very close overall for non-dedicated revenues and non-dedicated expenses to match, but we're struggling desperately with this decline in lottery. Because what this will do is it makes it so that other funds has to absorb some of those expenses. Hopefully not this biennium. We might have to watch as the plane comes right down to that runway towards the end of the biennium. But for next biennium, we're going to have to make a pretty significant shift because lottery will not be able to support the amount of FTE that are in it. Or maybe it can support the FTE, but we have to get all the stuff and other things out of it. And so that's the kind of thing we're looking at when we talk about sustainability. So as our conversations progress, I probably won't show you fun graphs of the teal and the different components of it. We probably need to start talking about future biennia and sustainability and how all of this feeds into it, because that's really what we're trying to fix. Questions? I snuck in a big one there at the end, didn't I?
Any questions from folks?
I'll ask one.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Thanks, Chair Hill. Hey, Sarah, how are you?
I am doing very well. Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner, yeah. Sarah and I go back in case you didn't know. You said something about lottery today, but then it didn't get illustrated on the slides, right? So just to be clear, that's not illustrated in any of these projections yet. Just want to make sure that was true.
That is true. The lottery change today, mind you, I only had that stuff for about an hour.
Yeah.
It looks like it would be $600,000 to our agency, Commissioner. So I don't know that it would have changed my graphs.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
That's right, and just to add to that, I think it's super important to talk about, like, because if you look at how lottery is coming in, the amount is pretty similar. Right, it's not growing, and I can't say it's a significant decline, but Stu, you probably know this better than any of the commissioners, but the shift from the 13 to 25% to the local government grant program is where that big piece is because we no longer have those lottery funds to use on operations while costs are climbing. And so I think that's just important to say out loud, because I think folks are hearing lotteries down, and that's not really what they're seeing when you look at the deposits and you look at the numbers. But it's also not growing. I mean, if you look at the expenditures, they're growing way higher than any revenue that we have coming in.
Go ahead, Commissioner Perillo.
Mostly just so I'm educated. The use of the lottery fund shift that you're just talking about, Lisa, that's as far as the shift of moving over to grant, is that by rulemaking or legislation or something of that sort? I mean, so how much control does the agency have in regard to that direction?
It would require a constitutional change.
Okay. But why is it marched up?
So when the second ballot measure, you guys will have to help me out. When 66 went in place and 76 became permanent, there was constitutional language that said at the 2009 budget that budget number then, when it hit a certain percent, 50% above that 2009 amount, it would then authorize once we hit that amount of money, nobody ever factored inflation there. We hit that amount of money, and then from 13 to 25% will go, 25% of that fund will go to local government grant programs, which is great. It's going out to another park, but at the same time, it hit our operations pretty significantly. In addition to that, we had always anticipated and actually had a DOJ opinion that said you wouldn't go back in a biennium. So if it triggered in like July of the middle of the biennium, you wouldn't go backwards and authorize that. You would wait until the next biennium because our budgets are already done. They went backwards, and it ended up being about a $17 million hit for the organization when it occurred. But it's in the constitutional language.
Thank you.
It's bottom of page 2 on the
Oh.
report.
Bottom of page 2, say it louder, Steve.
Oh, if you look at Sarah's report for 4A, some of the specifics are there at the bottom of page 2 about the dollar figures.
Okay. All right, anything else from folks for Sarah? As it relates to the lottery or budget or anything? Okay. Thank you, Sarah.
Gratitude.
Your work, it's hard. You're doing such a fabulous job, and thank you. We really like these graphics that you provide too for us lay folks. It's really actually helpful.
We have a wonderful budget team. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
Okay, next on our agenda, we have real estate, but we have nothing to talk about around real estate today. So we get to move on to something a little more positive, community engagement, which is number 6 on the agenda. And 6A is the ATV committee member appointments. And I think we have Michelle on for that. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Hill, Director Sumption, and members of the commission. For the record, I am Michelle Scalise, Grants and Community Programs Manager. Today, I'm presenting item 6A, appointments and reappointments of the All-Terrain Vehicle Committee. The ATV committee consists of 16 voting members and 1 non-voting member representing a large range of disciplines. Today, we're requesting approval to appoint 2 new representatives and reappoint 2 current representatives beginning their terms on January 1st of 2026. Before I get into and introduce the recommended candidates, I did want to acknowledge and sincerely thank our 2 outgoing members, Virgil Osborne and Barrett Brown. They have completed 2 full terms and have contributed with steady dedication and service to the ATV committee and subcommittee. And we're very grateful for their many years of support for the program and ATV recreation statewide, which they will continue to support in other roles independently. So for the proposed members, we had a recruitment process, and that included public outreach and a panel interview that resulted in a unanimous support for these recommended appointments. So for the Class 2 user organization representative, we are recommending Jeff Holland. Jeff brings extensive experience advocating for responsible ATV use, and he's active across many classes, all the ATV classes, in fact, and he holds leadership roles with the Willamette Valley Wheelers and Pacific Northwest Four-Wheel Drive Association. And he has a background in volunteer stewardship and trail access, and he'll be a very strong asset to the committee if approved. Then our Class 3 user organization representative is Courtney Carpenter. Courtney is a lifelong dirt bike rider, racer, and now a dirt bike coach. She is the owner of an organization called Dirtastic, and she provides training and safety instruction to women riders in Oregon and across the West. Her statewide perspective and commitment to safe, inclusive riding will make her a really valuable addition to this committee. So we have a couple reappointments, and those reappointments are for the law enforcement representative, Sergeant Matt Smith. Sergeant Smith supervises ATV patrol operations in the Oregon Dunes National Recreation Area and surrounding riding areas, and his operational knowledge continues to be highly valuable to the committee. The Oregon Department of Forestry representative Reed Brown is the other reappointment, and Reed has led Oregon Department of Forestry's OHV program for over a decade. He manages and develops OHV trail systems in the Northwest and is well respected within the OHV community. And we do appreciate his continued service. So the action requested is we are requesting commission approval to proceed with the appointment and reappointment of the recommended ATV Advisory Committee members. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from folks? Well, I just want to say thank you to the folks who are stepping up to volunteer for these positions, and there's some really great expertise, it looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, we really appreciate it.
So it's really exciting, and that they're representing a good swath of the state as well, and not just one particular area. So it's awesome. So I would entertain a motion to approve the appointments of the recommended ATV Advisory Committee members, as Michelle just laid out.
I move to approve to proceed with the appointment of recommended ATV Advisory Committee members.
Thank you, Commissioner Izumi. Do I have a second?
I move the second.
Commissioner Perullo with the second. All those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing no opposition, they are approved.
Dirtastic work.
It's a great name, isn't it?
Thank you.
Love it. All right. Moving on to 6B, statewide trail plans. And we have Steve Roloff.
Hello, I will actually kick us off. Chair Hill, Director Sumption, members of the commission. For the record, I'm Jody Belfi, a grant program coordinator here at the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department, here to present agenda item 6B, an information brief on the statewide trails plan. And I am joined by my colleague Steve, and I will pass it off to him for a quick intro.
Thanks, Jody. Good morning, Chair Hill, Director Sumption, members of the commission. For the record, I'm Steve Roloff. I'm the Planning and Design Lead at the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department.
Great, thanks, Steve. I will say Steve joined OPRD about midway through 2025 when this project was already underway. So while he wasn't part of the beginning, he's part of the project team that is working to see this plan all the way to completion and hopefully adoption next time we come back to you. Before I start, I would also like to recognize Jessica Horning. She's OPRD's statewide trails planner. She couldn't be here today, but she's the project manager for this plan, has done the lion's share of the work, keeping us on track, working on a little bit of a shorter timeline than initially planned. And she really did the lion's share of the drafting of the actual plan that you have in your packet. Our trail planner position is limited duration, so she'll be done at the end of the year, but she'll be getting us as close to the finish line as possible before she has to leave us and before we come back to you in February with a request for approval, which I'll talk a little bit more about today. And you do have a copy of these slides in your packet. We've used these same slides for a recent public webinar as well as a conference session. So I'll be breezing over a couple things just for the sake of time, but we're happy to answer questions as we go. And you can see my screen, right? Make it cool. Thank you. So first, what is the Trails Plan? So many of you were on board when the staff came to you for approval in a workshop about the Statewide Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan, or SCORP. And this is very similar. So similar to the SCORP, the Trails Plan is really more of a policy document that includes data from trail users and recreation providers. It includes strategies and recommended actions for all recreation providers and partners in the state, not just OPRD. And then it also includes scoring criteria for the recreational trails and ATV grant programs that we are responsible to administer for the state. So OPRD updates this plan every 10 years, so we were due for an update. It is possible that this could be wrapped in with the SCORP in the future, but for now, these are two separate but similar documents and processes. But different from the SCORP, if you do recall, the SCORP has to go to the governor's office and then to the National Park Service for approval. The Trails Plan does not require that level of approval. So that goes as far up to the OPRD Commission for approval and adoption, which again, talk more about that timeline later in the slides. And then, so what is in the plan? So much good data that can be used for a variety of purposes, including informing local planning at the local level. We do see these kind of plans referenced in, local government master planning processes, et cetera. It does a deep dive into benefits of trails in the state of Oregon, as well as barriers to trail use that some folks face. It includes trail funding priorities, which is based on data we collected from trail users and recreation providers. And then it has the updated RTP and ATV grant scoring criteria. This time it also includes a lot of case studies, which I'm really excited about. I think addresses a lot of what partners really wanted out of this plan. So a lot of just practical examples of what this work looks like and what some of those best practices are in the state. So how we did this, so first we started with the SCORP data. So because we did the SCORP not that long ago, I believe a lot of that data was collected in 2023. So first, Jessica compiled all the trail related data from the SCORP. So we had kind of a starting point to go with since they did so much legwork as part of that. OPRD also surveyed trail partners across the state. So that included recreation providers at the local, state, federal, tribal government level, as well as partners. So groups like Trail Coalitions, Trail Alliance, who do a lot of the boots on the ground maintenance work across the state. We did a public trail user survey. So that went out, on our social medias, through press releases. It got a lot of good news coverage. So got a pretty good response rate across different trail use types. We also held focus groups with different type of trail users. So folks who expressed interest in being in a focus group to do a little more deep dive, and folks that were invited just through the Trails Coalition network in the state. I also held focus groups with RTP grant applicants, since that program is fairly competitive, wanted to get their good feedback on the scoring criteria and how we apply it. And then we held workshops with grant committees and through other venues. So this photo on the screen here is from the 2024 Oregon Outdoor Recreation Summit, when we were just kicking off this process, and got a lot of great feedback at that session. And then just 2 weeks ago, we were in Pendleton doing a version of that, but with the actual draft plan in hand. So got even more great feedback and a lot of excitement from folks. The plan contains really good data like this on economic impacts of trails, as well as health cost illness savings of different trail use. A lot of just good factoids on the rise of trail use during the pandemic in particular. This data primarily came from the SCORP and was the work of our data guru, and through our contract, I believe it was with OSU, who compiled and ran a lot of these numbers. Caleb Dixon is our data guru. He couldn't be here today, so if you do end up having data questions, that may be something we have to follow up with him on after the presentation. It also includes a lot of good information like trip characteristics for different types of user groups, preferred experiences, satisfaction levels with different trail types, as well as data on electric mobility usage in the state. And again, this is based on the SCORP and survey responses that we did as part of the trail plan. Next, the plan goes into barriers to trail use. Some of this data came from the SCORP, but then really expanded based on responses we got through our trail user surveys. And then after going through the barriers in the plan, what those barriers are that folks are reporting, it goes into some really great recommended strategies for how land managers and partners can help reduce those barriers where possible. It also goes into more detail, which I won't go into a ton of detail today, just on accessibility, both standards and just best practices as far as providing accessible trail experiences and really focusing on providing information to trail users so they know what to expect and what trail is right for them. And then a big part of it is deep diving into these top needs. So these were the top 7 needs that were identified through all the work that we did. And these apply to trail use types across the board. So motorized, non-motorized, water trails, et cetera. So no surprise, funding and capacity will always come up probably in these types of planning processes as just a challenge. The next 4, maintenance, connectivity, information and signage, and safety and user conflicts, those really came from the trail user survey, and then goes into recommended actions on how to address some of those challenges. Then, like I already mentioned, it goes into barriers to the outdoors and how folks can work to reduce those barriers, followed by balancing conservation and outdoor recreation, which that was a big focus of the SCORP. So it made perfect sense to carry that good work and recommendations into the trails plan, along with some more trail specific information on what that looks like. Then with those needs, the plan goes into recommended actions for land managers and their partners to address those needs. I'm not going to go into detail on these just for the sake of time today, but lots of good information in there. And then where those were all across the board trail user types, it goes into needs by user group specifically. Some similarities and of course some nuance and things that apply to one group maybe specifically or more than another. And then similar to those overarching needs with the user groups, it goes into recommended actions to address needs by user groups. So for example, with mountain bikes and ATVs, a lot of what we heard was just folks wanting those sort of hubs where you can go and get all levels of experience. Maybe mom is riding the advanced blackline trails and, dad and kids are off at the pump track at the trailhead. So just providing more of those hub type experiences for folks, particularly for those type of trail use. And then across user type, we heard a lot just about wanting accessible opportunities, not necessarily paved flat trails for everybody, but just providing a great level of or a range of difficulty, but accommodating, different mobility devices and such. And then it ends with a sections on our draft updated scoring criteria for the RTP and ATV grant program. We did catch an error, but this PowerPoint was already finalized. There is a repeat on the ATV slide if anybody else caught that, and you get a prize if you did. But we had the project scope on there twice, but it adds up to 100 without that repeat of the scope there. So really we started with the scoring criteria we already had, did those feedback sessions with applicants and our grant committees, and then incorporated the data in the plan to come up with our new updated criteria. And we've done a lot of just outreach to our applicants and committees of just like, let's do deep dive now through the public comment period so we can get some good feedback on it. But we hope that these are some good improvements just to what we already have. And then with this, both of these programs will open again for application. They're both open now. We're reviewing applications for both of these at the moment, but we'll open again next fall. And that's when the updated criteria will actually be incorporated into those grant programs. And then getting close to wrapping up, but another thing I'm really excited about is we have a new page on our website. We just have the kind of first draft put up now. But what we heard a lot of is just folks across the state wanting more of a one-stop shop to find resources about recreation planning, what funding sources are out there, et cetera. A lot of these are resources that we had on our website or in other places. We had a lot of these on our grant program pages, but it became clear that we, you know, as the leading recreation agency in the state, just to have a good kind of page for folks just to go and find hopefully most of what they need when it comes to trail planning, understanding needs, and what funding resources are out there. So we'll continue to build that out, and of course we'll update it into the future. And included in that too is we did work with the Trails Coalition on some toolkit pieces, and one thing they did develop sort of supplemental to the work they've already done is sort of a guide for trail partners working with land managers and kind of how to navigate what you need to do when working with the land manager and things to take into consideration. So I think this will just continue to be helpful for our partners out there. So to wrap it up, here's our timeline. We are open for public comment right now. Public comments are due by November 28th. So on our website, we've got a recording of the webinar that we did recently, a copy of the draft plan that you all have in your packet, as well as a comment form and Jessica's info for folks to send comments to however they prefer. So we're here today just to let you know what we've been working on. And if all goes smooth, we'll be back to you in February with a plan that's incorporated comments, that's gone through a design process, so that we can request your approval. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Jody. Very helpful. Does anybody have questions or comments for Jody? Quiet bunch, man.
They're so quiet today.
Yeah, that's okay. This is extremely helpful. I'll be, you guys have engaged so many folks on this. It's really great. We'll be curious to see what kind of comments we get out of the public comment period, which we'll be able to review it in February, I assume. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Wonderful. Well, if there's no questions or comments, I think we can move on.
Chair
Thank
Hill,
you.
I do
Yeah,
think
go
I
ahead.
saw Commissioner Perullo raise his hand.
Oh, I missed that. Go ahead, Commissioner Perullo.
I actually got ahead of myself and Jody actually updated it. I was curious. I went back and looked at the public comment period is open October 30th. And I'm just curious if you have received any consistent comments to the plan that maybe you didn't expect, or were you getting comments that are supporting the, you know, the plan going forward? I mean, were there any, just kind of curious what the public peek under the hood looks like?
So thank you for that question, Commissioner Perullo. The challenge with that is comments are all going to Jessica, and she's been on vacation. So I am anxiously waiting for her to get back. I think it's either Monday or Tuesday, because I want to know everything. I will say some things I know that have already come up just in our webinar is just because, you know, this is a document put out by State Parks. It's called a trail plan. We're getting things like, can you fix the banks for Nonia? Can you do this? So we will get those comments that, you know, the word plan is confusing because it's more of a policy document, but some of those just general, hey, State Parks, can you do this? But we'll definitely be compiling all of that for you and identifying themes when we come back in February. But if you'd like something in the meantime, we can get Jessica to help when she's back.
No, I'm just nosy all the time. Thank you.
Yeah. Same.
And one for me, Chair Hill, if you're ready.
Yes, we are. Go ahead, Commissioner Spence.
Thank you. Hey, thanks, Jody. One of the things that we work with the legislature, ORPA, the Oregon Recreation Park Association, has been safety and user conflicts. I see that made the list, especially with electric mobility devices on, you know, walking paths or biking paths. I mean, that's a big deal just for this group to pay attention to as we go through this plan and find the comments. That's an emerging / already emerged trend that is a huge challenge for local trail providers and conflicts within the user groups that hopefully we can work with state legislators on trying to codify some of that language to help us as park staff. Just wanted to kind of bring that up as a point of interest.
Yeah, Chair Hill, would you like me to add anything to that?
Go ahead.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Spence. Good to see you. So yeah, the plan, I know some folks did want from the plan of just tell us what to do and how to manage this. But of course, that's different across every land manager. What the plan does is it provides some good case studies, one from the Deschutes National Forest, one from us. I think some information just about the more recent definitions from the legislature. And then on our technical resources webpage, we do have some documents that other agencies have put out, Federal Highways, People for Bikes, groups like that, just on sort of how to grapple with that. But yeah, I hear you that that's an area we need a lot more, and cross-agency collaboration where our trails actually connect but have different rules that govern them. So yeah. Thank you.
Good feedback. Okay. I think I've caught everybody. If not, speak now. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Jody. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to 6C, State Natural Area Program with Noel.
Morning, everyone. Give me a second to get my screen going here.
No, we're all like, oh, Zoom, we don't know how to do that.
Yeah, I'm used to Teams, but Zoom is a little bit strange. Good morning, everyone. Chair Hill, Director Sumption, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Noel Batchelor. I'm the Central Natural Resource Specialist at headquarters, and I'm the program lead for the State Natural Areas Program. Today, I'm here to talk to you about a petition we received in August to register a property owned by Columbia Land Trust known as the Cedar Creek Forest Preserve that is in Columbia County. And I'll start with some details if I can get my screen to advance. Oops. Okay. So this property is about a 644 acre smack dab in the middle of Columbia County. It was acquired by Columbia Land Trust for preservation purposes and is being managed for development of late Seral forest habitat. It's in an area that includes the headwaters of Cedar Creek, which is a spawning tributary for Oregon Coast coho, which is a listed species under the Endangered Species Act. It also contains spawning and rearing habitat for coastal cutthroat trout and winter steelhead, and designated critical habitat for coho. It has 2 rare species of fungi on the property, including Spongioporus paradelicatus and Didiola hassii, a couple of mouthfuls there in Latin. Those species are very rare, and Didiola hassii is known from only one other place in North America as of the date of the report that accompanied this petition. There is habitat in this property for marbled murrelet and northern spotted owl, and the property is an important stepping stone in a migratory pathway for species moving eastward from the coast, like marbled murrelet, in an area that is dominated by short rotation industrial forestry. So this is a later Seral forest habitat stepping stone or island in an area of predominantly industrial forestry. And here's a map of the location. It's about halfway between Clatskanie and Vernonia in Columbia County, and the inset in the upper right shows how it's smack dab in the middle of Columbia County. The inset in the lower right shows its landscape context as a chunk of older forest within a context of younger industrial forestry. And our role in receiving these petitions, I know I presented this at the last commission meeting, but just to review some of OPRD's involvement in this program. OPRD is the state agency that is responsible for managing the State Natural Areas Plan and maintaining the register of state natural areas throughout the state. The whole program is predicated on the contents of the Oregon Natural Areas Plan, which contains a listing of all of the habitat types in Oregon's natural heritage, as well as some geological types and species types, which I like to refer to as sort of a Noah's Ark of all of Oregon's natural heritage, where we're looking for examples of each one of these habitat types to be made available to researchers and the public for interpretation and appreciation of the full range of habitats in Oregon. The process for registering properties is one where property owners petition us, and staff from the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department, as well as the Oregon Biodiversity Information Center, have joint statutory authority to review those petitions and then either move them forward to the commission for approval or rejection. And why do people want to register their properties? When it's a public entity, it's simply to recognize the values of the property, its ecological value, its landscape value, its interpretive value. But for nonprofits like Columbia Land Trust, there's a tax benefit. And nonprofits that register their properties as a state natural area and have a management plan and allow some level of guided or unrestricted public access are eligible to receive a tax break in that they are not required to pay back taxes for a period of 7 years that would have become due upon changing the land use allocation of their property from a tax sheltered or deferred situation like exclusive farm use or forestry to a higher tax rate situation like open space. And this can be a pretty costly tax burden. And so this is something that the Oregon Department of Revenue put in their rules as a sort of incentive many years ago for nonprofits to register their properties as state natural areas. And in August of this year, Oregon Parks and Recreation Department and Oregon Biodiversity Information Center visited the property with Columbia Land Trust and reviewed the properties that are being proposed for inclusion in the Register of State Natural Areas. There are good representatives of 3 main habitat types on the property, with the Western Hemlock Sword Fern habitat type, the Western Hemlock Oxalis habitat type, and the Crabapple Slough Sedge habitat type, all of which are currently represented in the State Natural Areas Plan, but have no registered representatives on the State Natural Areas Register. So there's no undue duplication of representation of these types. The presence of rare species on the property, the presence of habitat and its stepping stone or island value for migratory species dependent on late Cyril habitat is also a factor in determining that this property is likely eligible for inclusion on the register. Here are a couple of photos of the property showing what it generally looks like. It's 100-year-old forest. There are a couple of patches of more recently managed forest, but this is well on its way to becoming late Cyril forest, which, as I said before, is not the dominant habitat type in this general area. And with that, I would say that OPRD Natural Areas Program staff recommend registration of the property, and I would entertain any questions.
You know, I have a question. I saw in your briefing that the forest will require some management. Who does that?
Columbia Land Trust will do that, and their management plan contains details about how they propose to manage that habitat. But their overlying goal is to thin and encourage the development of late Cyril structure across the habitat. It's not for economic uses.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the commission? All right, I don't see any. Let me know if I'm missing anyone, but if not, I would take a motion on this one to add the petition property to the Register of State Natural Areas.
We'll wake up. Commissioner Spence, so moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Spence. Can I get a second?
Second.
Commissioner Izumi with the second. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed to this? All right, hearing no opposition, so approved. Thank you very much, Noel.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye.
So
All right. we are moving right along. We are in the heritage section of our agenda, and this is just information.
Yes, good morning, Chair Hill, Director Assumption, members of the commission. For the record, Matt Rippey with the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department. I'm here with agenda item 7A, which is informational and a heritage section brief. There are a couple of things I want to highlight from the brief. I think you have it in your packet. The first is our former Deputy State Historic Preservation Officer, Chrissy Curran, received Restore Oregon's DeMuro Award. It's the highest award of its kind in Oregon and really recognizes the impact she's had over the last, several decades, or not several decades, but decades of her service in Oregon. I actually had a chance to meet with Chrissy a couple of weeks ago at the Joint Commission and Committees meeting in Canby, and I just have to say she is doing remarkably well, as you can imagine. Retirement is working well for her. It was really cool to see her. So anyways, I wanted to mention that. Also, the Oregon Main Street Conference was held in Albany this year for the first time in about 15 years. One of the highlights there, Sherry Stewart, who is our outgoing Main Street coordinator, was able to give the keynote address. We're currently recruiting for her position, but those are big shoes to fill. She'll be missed. You may remember a few months ago that Sherry received national recognition for the work that she's done in the Main Street program. Also wanted to mention a couple of new properties that are listed on the National Register of Historic Places. One is kind of in our backyard here in LeGrand over in Union, the Catherine Creek Community Center. And then the second was the Bouch Gulch Bridge in Northwest Portland that was built in 1905 and was recently refurbished, I think in 2014 with Portland Bureau of Transportation. And lastly, again, I wanted to mention the Oregon Heritage Joint Commission and Committee meeting that was held in Canby. I had the opportunity to attend this for a short period. I wasn't there for the full day, but it was really good for me to see these commissions and committees work together, kind of the vast knowledge of the individuals and the amount that they care about the work that they do. I was going to mention, if you have the opportunity to go to one of their joint commission and committee meetings in the future, I would recommend it. It's a really neat group of folks. It was cool to see them interact with our heritage team and just hear about the work that they're doing. I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Any questions from folks? I don't see any. And congratulations to Christy. It's nice to hear that she's doing so well.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Matt. Okay, moving on. The next portion of our agenda, we're skipping Park Development Division because we don't have anything to update today on that. So we're moving on to rulemaking, number 9, and we're going to start with the drones operation, and this is just information only.
Chair Hill, Director Assumption, members of the commission, Katie Gauthier. For the drone update, I'm going to have Robert Ellison, our policy analyst, and who's leading this rulemaking, share the latest status. For those of you who've been on the commission a while, you've heard us come a few times, but Robert's going to work so that we can get rules adopted. Go ahead, Robert.
Perfect. Thank you all. Thank you, Katie. I'm going to go ahead and start by sharing my screen here. That working for everyone?
Not
yet.
We're going through your curveball with Zoom, sorry.
Now it's.
We can see
Now is
it.
it good?
Yep.
Perfect. Alrighty. Good morning, Chair Hill, Director Assumption, and members of the Commission. For the record, my name is Robert Ellison. I am a policy analyst with Oregon Parks and Recreation Department. I am here today to give you an update on our drone rulemaking process, where we've been, where we are now, and what's to come next. So first off, I want to start with a little background. There is a lot of information on the screen here, but I have kind of 3 key dates that I want to share. Starting in 2021, Senate Bill 109 enacted and then was enacted and OPR began the rulemaking process. During that time, the rules were opened by the Commission. In 2022, rulemaking was paused. The rulemaking was paused to ensure a stronger representation from our natural resource folks, and we wanted to make sure we had a more complete evaluation of our stakeholder perspectives within the rulemaking process. Then from 2023 to 2024, internal/external work group was organized, and then that work group was also concluded. We also collected public feedback through a form, and we compiled those recommendations, and they were shared with the director. And during that time, there was also a drone workshop at one of our commission meetings that some of you may remember. The drone work group that we had organized was composed of members of OPRD as well as subject matter expert, excuse me, as well as subject matter experts and interested parties, both public and private. The drone work group came up with some classification criteria and kind of identified 4 guiding values: resource protection, public safety, land use designations, and operational and recreational management. These values help define where drones could and could not be used and where would be considered appropriate. As you see on your screen there are some of the prohibited, conditional, and open areas that the drone group initially worked on to identify. Perfect. The current version of the draft rules have kind of 5 main things that I wanted to touch on here. So they're prohibited unless designated. So drone use will be allowed only in official drone operation areas that will be posted online. It allows for adaptive management, so OPRD can add, adjust, or close areas as conditions change. There's a permit path, which would be required for areas outside of those designated areas. And some of that will be addressed through a special use permit and commercial use permit that is to come. The main prohibited areas, which will include overnight facilities, cultural sites, unsafe locations, as well as non-public access areas. And then it includes an optional path, which would allow OPRD to manage seasonal or high use areas with a drone pass system. And so this would allow us to have users be able to see maps ahead of time, require them to acknowledge some of the rules of the different areas as well. Really, the main point of this rule is to really lean into the adaptive management as technology is ever changing. And it allows for us to have designations that change over time. So drone launch areas may be added, modified, or removed as conditions evolve, as parks become busier or less busy, or just different things may happen at different parks. Allows for seasonal flexibility, so areas can be open or restricted based off wildlife timing, resource needs, or park operations. It gives us some scalable tools. The rule allows future management options like that drone pass system that I mentioned without necessarily requiring new rulemaking. And then gives us some responsive decision making, so we can temporarily close areas for safety or resource protection or conflict management kind of as needed. The timeline here, I kind of have the full thing laid out. You can see at the top we're in this outreach phase. So I want to touch on kind of some of where we're at right now. We had our Rule Advisory Committee, our first meeting happened back in October. We have a second Rule Advisory Committee meeting scheduled in December. We are shooting for a public comment period that would begin on January 1, and that would also include a public hearing. The plan is to have the agency review happen after that public comment period to run in between February and April, and then be able to present to the commission again for adoption in April or June, depending on timing and changes that may need to happen. Again, this is just a brief overview. I know a lot of you have seen a lot of information come up from drones in the past at different commission meetings and such, and so I just wanted to give you an update of where we are now. And give you an opportunity for any questions that you might have before we continue.
Go ahead, Commissioner Perullo.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Robert. Question that I have coming up as you're working through this process in regards to privacy, and we're hearing a lot in tourism about name, image, and likeness, and therefore drone is photography or it's videography. So, I mean, is there steps that you're encountering that the that the park needs to be thinking about, such as public postings that this is a drone area and your image and likeness may be used and things of that sort?
Great question. Not in reference to name, image, and likeness, but there will be public postings, whether it be online or at the park, to help designate where drone operation areas are. In the past, we've looked at GIS mapping that would be posted online, where there's very specific outlines of where those drone operations might be. But as we can all recognize, I have a hard enough time geolocating myself at a trailhead on a map at times, let alone on a cell phone trying to find exactly where we're at. So signage and other things will be used to help guide those areas and let people know that they may be drone operation areas.
For my follow-up question, and I'm just thinking down the line, and this might be more for council, but at any point, you think the parks may arise that we might have a legal issue that we're trying to resolve, and if we have permanent drone usage or something of that sort, I mean, the parks legal might be able to be accessing this to help defend the park's position of negligence or any type of activity. I don't know. It's kind of that's a bigger question.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that one.
Say a little bit more, Commissioner Perlow, like as if somebody used a drone in an undesignated area and caused damage or harm or.
No, I'm just wondering if we are allowing people to have drone usage, and pretty much the same way that you're starting to capture people's likenesses, this the way that public cameras do. I mean, I don't know if there's any type of crossover that maybe parks needs to be thinking about. Is there some sort of effect? I don't know. I'm all doom and gloom today. Sorry.
Yeah, I had not thought about that one.
We only regulate so if they're in operations doing something, it's really not our.
Yeah, like jurisdictionally, we wouldn't be able to unless it's planned.
So one of the unique things with drones are, Chair Hill, Director Assumption, because they're regulated in the air by the FAA, we can only regulate takeoff and landing. So
Okay.
if it were something that happened in the air, it would be an FAA issue. It wouldn't be a parks issue.
Okay, and I think that's probably like the pathway that's important for clearing up. Thank you.
That's a great flag.
Yeah.
All right, Commissioner Izumi.
Yeah, thank you. I was just wondering, I'm curious about what the possibilities are moving forward. So after the public comment period, is the opportunity around approving or making changes to the plan that's already been suggested, or is there still an opportunity to not allow drones to take off and land in any area?
Yeah, great question. I think part of our standard rulemaking process still applies. So we're presenting this plan forward with the RAC. So some of that plan may change with recommendations from the RAC. We'll also consider all the public comment and feedback that we get on this rulemaking to determine what next steps might be appropriate. And then this will all be presented again to the commission for adoption, whether that's approved or denied or adopted with changes.
Thank you. I have a second question as well. I'm wondering if the committee considered potential budget impacts related to the adaptive management plan. It seems like there would be costs related to enforcement, going back, reviewing, changing. It like just on, reading through the what's here. And hearing the presentation, I think that the public might be confused about the various changes that take place. And it's hard, as we've seen in other scenarios, for people to adjust quickly and follow rules when they change.
Yeah. And part of this process with the change to the rules was that consideration of the budget impact slash staff time. So the GIS mapping of every park property to indicate whether they were a green, yellow, or red zone we identified was going to take a lot of staff time and be very labor intensive. So the goal with this process really was to just identify some of those areas, some of those park properties that would be wholly green as the initial properties that would be allowed for drone operation. And then again, this adaptive management allows us to be flexible going forward in how quickly we want to roll this out and how many park properties that we want to identify going forward or that might be identified meeting the correct criteria. So there's that part of it. And then also as rules changing where it is written in the rule that any areas that do become drone operation areas would be posted online 30 days in advance of that area becoming a drone operation area. So hopefully that gives the public a little bit of time and heads up prior to something becoming a drone operation area.
Thank you.
That's a good question, Commissioner Izumi. I recognize, I don't think anybody on the commission now was in the meeting in 2021, except for myself. And there were a lot of questions at that point, similar to the ones that you have around safety, around protections of privacy, around how you monitor all of this. And we had, you know, these GIS maps, and the question around cost came up as well, and concern, which is, I think, where we are today, being what, almost 4 years later, paring it down a bit and trying to simplify. So it'll be really interesting, you know, as the RAC moves forward and the rulemaking, what other public comments come out of that, and if we need to adjust anything from the commission's perspective.
Yes, thank you, Chair Hill.
Are there any other questions or any information that you guys need as a commission from the commissioners on the previous work that's been done? Okay, I don't see anything.
I just think it's super important to also note that drones have been around for more than a decade. People are using them and we don't have rules. So like any progress we can make is going to be super helpful because it is a little bit of a friction point for us. So great job, Robert.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. And we've been mandated by the legislature to do it. Not an option as much as we'd like to avoid it. Okay, thank you, Robert. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay. Moving along, rulemaking 9B, request to open Division 15 rates and reservation policy.
Right, Chair Hill, Director Sumption, members of the commission, Robert is a back to follow, but I am here with agenda item 9B, request to open rulemaking for Division 15. To provide some background on how we got here, what we're looking at. Division 15 are our rules around reservations, rates, fee waivers. They include our rate ranges. The proposed changes would be changes to our cancellation policy, the special access pass program, updating the rate ranges, adding more options around the day use parking fee, and then looking at our fee waivers. So generally, these are changes that we're proposing. You can see my number is not updated, but looking at our budget gap and the shortfall due to rising operational costs, increased visitation, and the projected lottery fund decreases. It's important to remember that visitor fees don't cover the full cost of park operations, and OPRD does not receive general fund for operations. So we're looking at what can we do to address the sustainability needs for the park system and keep the parks open. So that's where many of these changes are coming from. Particularly the changes around our cancellation policy are to look at making sure that our parks are accessible and the campsites are filled by people who want to be camping. So it's looking at the incentives that we have around camping and around cancellations. So the reservation and cancellation policy, currently, if you you can reserve 6 months out, and then you would get a full refund for that fee minus the reservation fee if you cancel before 3 days before your arrival. Our special access pass program, if they cancel, the nights are refunded to the pass as long as they do it 3 days before. If you don't cancel currently and you just don't show up, you lose the first night of your stay, but you're refunded the remaining nights, and we will mail a check back to people who just don't show up. And our special access pass participants, if they don't cancel, they lose their first night, but any remaining nights that they had reserved go back to their pass. The proposed change would be to pull the language out of rule and detail on our website a policy where refunds are based proportionally on how long you've kept the reservation. So if you reserved 6 months ago and you canceled 3 days before the reservation, you're going to get a smaller refund than if you reserved 6 months ago and you cancel 5 months before the reservation. And then it would be corresponding for the special access pass. Additionally, if individuals don't cancel, they would not receive a refund. And we will outline all of the specifics for this policy on our website. The goal is to incentivize early cancellation so other campers can have access. Currently, 30% of our reservations are ultimately canceled. So we have a significant inventory that is available, but people don't often see the availability because of the late cancellations. The Special Access Pass program, which Director Sumption mentioned during the director's update. Currently, it is a program for we have two categories: service-connected disabled veterans from any state receive 10 nights of free camping per month, free day use pass, and then free showers at parks that allow non-camper showers. We have over 41,000 participants in that category, and approximately a third of them are from outside of Oregon. For the foster and adoptive foster families, that is for Oregon foster families or adoptive foster families with children under 18, or for children with developmental disabilities, it can be up to age 26. Currently, they are eligible for 2 campsites and up to 14 nights per month. And it is a smaller program, so we have just over 2,500 participants total in that program. And foster families, it's only Oregon, but for adoptive foster families, sounds like there are some that have moved outside the state, so it's about 3.5% of the pass holders are from outside of Oregon. Currently, the agency spends waives fees in the amount of $4.8 million per biennium for this program. The proposed rule changes would limit the veterans portion to Oregon service-connected disabled veterans, and then would be 10 nights of free camping per year, and changing the replacement. The cards are free when you first apply, but if you need a replacement card, changing it to $10 to just cover our costs for the replacement. Implementing this, we would not take passes away from current participants, but we would not renew them when those expire. For the foster and adoptive foster families, it would be limited to 1 campsite, also limited to Oregon residents, and 10 nights of free camping per year with a $10 replacement. Currently, 80% of our pass holders do not camp more than 10 nights per year. So for that population, this won't be a change. But by implementing these changes, when they're fully implemented, it would be a program cost of waiving fees for $2.6 million. And if there are questions as I'm going through this, please feel free to ask. It's a lot of dense information. And so for day use parking permits, there are a couple of changes. One is just looking at the rate ranges to make sure that we have flexibility for the future. So the rate range for a daily permit, it currently goes from 7 to 15. We would propose it goes from 7 to 25. We wouldn't anticipate making this change because under the current recreational immunity statutes, parking fees are limited to $15. So, but if that statute were to be updated, we would have the flexibility to update our pricing. The 12-month parking permits would have a range of $30 to $100, and the 24 months would be $50 to $200. Well, we're not offering a 24-month permit for the 2026 year. Preserving that flexibility to have it in the future is important. Vendor fees, currently we do provide parking passes through agreements with vendors in local communities and with some of our friends groups. And $1 of the pass price goes to that vendor currently. The proposed change would be that the director can set a cap, but the fee would be added on top of the pass. So instead of it coming out of the overall pass, the fee would be added on top. And then displaying permits, currently you're under our rules, a printed permit or is required on the dash or the hang tag. We would add the license plates entered into our system as an option with this. And then we move to dynamic pricing, allowing campsite prices to vary based on demand and things like the season, the location, days of the week, holidays, amenities, to better manage our demand and generate revenue more efficiently. The proposed rate changes to the rate ranges. So it's important to note that we're not proposing any camping fee changes with this. It's just the rate ranges that the director then sets the fees within those ranges. They're proposed to look at, and I'll go to this page so you can look at them. And I won't go through each one individually, but they're looking at, you may remember at the last commission meeting, Caleb Dixon presented the rate review study that he had conducted. And this puts us more toward the middle range of proposed rates for these ranges. Leave that there for a second. And then other proposed changes, we do add an overnight parking site type. This would be for not the extra vehicles, but if we have some parks where people want to park their car overnight and leave it and then go on a river or go across the lake, and this just adds that site type. The changes in waiving fees for day use parking that Director Sumption mentioned, Green Friday and First Day hikes are not in rule, but State Parks Day is in rule. So we would move and not allow for free camping fee waivers, but there would be day use fee waivers, day use parking fee waivers for Oregonians. The proposed rules also make changes to the marketing and promotional fee waivers that we provide to make sure that they're in alignment with our mission and priorities. And refund policies and use of gift certificates would be outlined on our website. So it's not making significant changes to those, but just moving it to a site that's more user-friendly for visitors. So the proposed process, if you approve opening the rules, we would open public comment on December 1st, do a virtual hearing on December 15th. Staff would analyze the comments. Comments will be posted on the agency website on a weekly basis. And then we would ask you to consider adoption as soon as February 2026. So the request is to approve opening rulemaking for Division 15 rule changes. And I'm happy to take questions.
Anybody have any questions or comments about this? Commissioner Izumi.
Yeah, I just have a question. Thanks for that, Katie. I'm curious about the refund based on how long the reservation has been held. It seems really generous. And I'm wondering if if you consider just having just a flat refund versus giving a larger refund for people who hadn't reserved the site for as long as they had.
We did consider a number, or Commissioner Izumi, we did consider a number of options with the goal of incentivizing people to cancel early so that the sites could then be booked by other people who are wanting to use them. So that's the incentive, that giving a larger refund in the beginning for people who cancel earlier will encourage people to cancel earlier, and then those sites can then be rebooked by other people who are wanting to camp. So it's really trying to incentivize visitor behavior.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'll add to that, Betty. There are several states that they don't even offer you a refund. They're very clear because they want that inventory to be open.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead. Who was that?
Regarding the cancellations, you were saying like 1 in 3 reservations end up in a cancellation. Has staff ever looked into the reason why such a high rate of cancellations going on?
It's looking at Commissioner Condor, it's looking at over the time period. So if somebody reserves 6 months out, at some point in that time, about a third of reservations end up being canceled. And a lot of it is weather related. It's something that if you make a reservation 6 months ahead of time, your life changes within those 6 months. So it's more around, and it's really those, we have and Caleb is way better at sharing this, but we have a significant, we have some great charts too. And when we do the adoption, I'll make sure that we have that data here so you can see it. But we get significant reservations 6 months out. So that from 6 to 5 months, there's significant reservations. And then there won't be reservations for the 5 to 3 month out. But then that 1 to 2 months is when we start to see more reservations. So people who look then think that all of our inventory is booked because they've been booked at the 6 month window time period. And then if people don't cancel in time, when those late planners like myself want to go camping, we don't see something that's available because we're looking at a month or 2 months out. So the goal is that this will help with that.
We do hear a lot of people say that it's not that expensive. They don't care if they lose the money. They know we'll give them a refund. So it's just things change and it's not high enough dollar amount to worry about.
Eliminating our refunds for no-shows will be one of the biggest changes that help to guide our visitors to actually canceling their reservation. We hear from lots of visitors frustrated when we say the park is booked, but the site next to them, they don't see somebody in
For 3 days.
Yeah, and so this will help with that issue. Hopefully.
Commissioner Izumi.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry to be so dense about that refund based on how long the reservation is held, but I just want, like, I'm thinking about these different scenarios, and I think like the incentive to just cancel, like if you cancel 1 month ahead of time, you get X amount back. If you cancel a week before, you get a refund, and anything under that. I'm just making these dates up, but anything under that, you don't get a refund at all. It seems like it doesn't really matter when you book the site, if the idea is to just cancel as early as possible. And I'm just thinking about like the user and getting a refund back. And like I would be confused as to why I got a certain amount back if I booked 6 months prior versus if I booked 2 weeks prior to canceling a reservation. I don't know if that makes sense. And, if everybody else understands this process and it makes sense, then, disregard what I'm saying, because it might just be a little bit slow on this.
Commissioner Izumi, no, it is going to take some education for our visitors to help them understand. The amount of the refund will be based on how long you've held the reservation. So if you book 6 months out and you hold it for 5 months, then you're going to get a lower refund than even if you book 2 weeks out and you cancel it the next day, that it'll be both how long you've held it and how far away the reservation is when you cancel. So we will have plenty of information on the website detailing if you do this, you get this type of reservation or this type of refund, so that we can help visitors understand and create the correct incentives to have that early cancellation.
Okay, so the incentive then is also don't book so far in advance, right? It's an incentive to book when you really know what your plans are going to be, and then also to cancel early. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay,
Correct.
got it.
Some
Thank
visitors
you.
we'll have visitors who will 6 months out, they book all of the sites that they think they're going to do for that summer. And then as they get other activities and as they understand the weather and things like that, then they may cancel many or some of those, but because they can hold that site, it doesn't open the inventory for other visitors.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you for that, Katie.
Go ahead, Commissioner Perullo.
Thanks, Katie. Yeah, I think that Parks needs to work towards whatever they can do to maximize occupancy. So moving into a dynamic pricing, I think is something that dynamic pricing and cancellation process is really important. I think as you build this, that we should, I don't know if you have to build in the mechanism for review. I mean, up front, so we're not totally locked into a process that, so I think after years learning, if I was running a private hotel or business, right, I price and I dynamically control however I will, but I know we're a little bit more have to be formalized because of the agency roles that we're in. But I'm wondering if you need to build into rulemaking the ability to review and revise. Because if you've had 1 year's history or biennial's history, and it's just like, hey, this is not performing as we need it. Actually, it's making our performance go negative. Yeah. I think we might want to have that built into it.
Commissioner Curl, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Thank you. That's a very good point. And the goal of taking the specific cancellation policies out of rule and putting it on our website allows for a more dynamic review of that so that we can continue to evaluate and update any areas that are confusing or areas where they're creating some disincentives for visitors. Because it's not in rule, we won't have to go through a full rulemaking process to do that. In addition, our flexible fee authority and having the rate ranges allows for a dynamic review of our dynamic pricing, so that if it's not structured the way that we want, we can continue to adaptively manage that.
Have you built in like a force majeure type of thing of refund? So people reserve our places to stay, and I don't know, there's a natural resource occurrence like terrible thunderstorms or fire or something of that sort. I mean, is that built in already to the policy that exemption can be made?
Oh, yes, definitely, definitely, Commissioner Perillo. We have refunds, and if we end up closing a park or natural resource reasons, we will refund both the camping fee and the reservation fee. So we have a process to do that currently, and that will be outlined on the website. Currently, we also have some special case scenarios where visitors can have a refund, and we're evaluating all of those types of refunds to see which ones should remain and continue. But we do want to be reasonable with visitors who have things happen in their lives.
And my last question is just a thought, because I don't know how the reservation system works. But thinking about how other retail works, and so if we've had visitors come and are disappointed that they weren't able to make campground yurt reservations and things of that sort, and we start working through these cancellations, is there any automation that's set up so that, like, you were interested in staying at Stubbs Stewart, it's available, would you like to book now, or is the system not set up for that at the moment?
It's not as sophisticated as that, but we do have an option to create a wait list. So if somebody goes to a site and all the sites are booked, they can register to be added to a waiting notification. So they're not actually on a list, but they get notified when there is a cancellation, and then they can go in and book. I've done it and was able to stay at Sunset Bay in a year, because they have to be the first person so anybody who signs up for this would be notified, and then you have to be the first person to go on quickly and reserve it.
Oh, cool. Good to hear. Thank you very much.
That is one of the options that we try to tell visitors who are frustrated by the lack of ability to find a site, that it's a thing that does work well.
Commissioner Izumi.
Okay. Last question. Thanks. Sorry. Has the group considered only allowing a certain number of reservations per person?
It is something that we reviewed and it was discussed. It's not a direction that we've gone, partially because we don't really have a good way of verifying. So if you create a different account within our reservation system with a different email, we wouldn't be able to verify who's making the reservation. Sometimes we have people who reserve for multiple family members, so there's not really a good technological way to ensure that at this point, but it is something that we could consider in the future.
We hope with the new reservation platform, maybe that could be helpful.
Yeah, the recreation.gov does that now, and I guess I could have created a new email and an account, but it was just too much trouble. So instead of booking more than 3 overnight wilderness permits this summer, I canceled some of the ones. I rearranged my plan so that I only booked the 3 that I knew that I really wanted, and I thought that was really effective. But I guess some people have more time to create new accounts to work the system. Thank you.
I think it would defer, people it would definitely deter people if we just said it out loud, not so much that we enforce it, but we just said it.
Yeah, it's something that we can look into and see how we can implement that in the future.
Can I get a little more clarity on the demand pricing piece and how that will roll out? I mean, is that different rates for different campgrounds based on how packed those campgrounds typically get? When do those rates fluctuate and change? And what is the deciding? How are we going to initially think about what those rate levels are, and then the reflection period of do we alter and change them?
There are current reservation system. They do have a model where we can, as sites are booked 25% full, there would be a rate, and as it gets closer, then the rate could increase. We haven't utilized that because we don't have that room within our rate ranges, but other states that are even under our current reservation vendor are implementing that, so that it depends on we can set different rates for different parks at different times of the year, and then what the occupancy level is, and the rates would change based on that occupancy level. It's something that we'll continue to work with our reservation vendor on how to implement it and what rates to set. And that will also be Caleb Dixon, who is our research analyst, and our budget team will be monitoring our occupancy levels so that we can adapt that as we move forward in implementation, to make sure that we're reflective and maximizing our occupancy.
That's helpful. I do, I think about, there's populated places that just keep getting busier and busier, particularly the North Coast. And, how we have to balance as state parks, obviously our need for revenue and being able to maintain what we have, but then also access for Oregonians. And, how cool it is if you get 6 months in advance, you get a decent rate at Cannon Beach versus, maybe a month ahead of time when you're thinking about booking and those rates go up, which seems fair. But I think, if there's a way that we can think about how to ensure that, the average Oregon family is going to maybe get a good deal for something that they plan well in advance and get access versus, places we know get packed with folks from not only outside of the state, but around the state too at the last minute. I mean, I think, that's something I certainly struggle with when I think about these is there's places that if rates go supremely high up to, $80 a night for full hookups, does that limit your average family from Burns that wants to go to the coast in the summer and stay for a week and, be able to plan ahead for something like that with a decent rate versus a kind of a last minute dynamic pricing where it's going to be packed and pay a higher price.
Commissioner Hill, yes, that's a challenge that we have to keep balancing. the demand, the revenue stability needs, and access for Oregonians. So it'll be a continuing conversation that we'll keep having with you and with the Oregonians as they review these rate ranges. The attempt is that in times where is lower demand, there could be lower pricing, and lower price, making sure that we have some options. We've traditionally kept tent sites a bit lower as an option for more affordability for families. So we need to continue to evaluate that within our financial sustainability model.
And we've talked about maybe not all RV sites, maybe the ones that are more prime, like it, so we'll have to keep looking at what this might look like, but also keeping in mind, Kayla brought all of us the private campgrounds that are near us and what their rates are, and staying, you know, definitely south of those, but at the same time, recognizing when we're full. In particular, Fort Stevens, they're going over to KOA and paying a lot more money to be there. So it's just trying to balance that demand and making sure that we do have that ability to provide access for folks, and at the same time, not giving it all away either.
Yeah, no, and I understand that's a hard balance. They're private campgrounds though, and we are also trying to balance, like, how do we make sure that Oregonians still get access to these special places? And I understand and completely agree that this is a really hard thing to balance, but I do want to make sure that we're not solely thinking about, you know, how to get the most juice for our squeeze out of the campgrounds as though they are completely privatized, but also, you know, access is also very important. And how do we, you know, balance a little bit of that into this? Which I know you all are doing, so I don't mean to provide any sort of lecture or anything, but it's certainly something that is weighing heavy on my mind. And I think as we go through these different rulemakings, other folks are thinking about that too. So any other comments?
Use these as an opportunity to leverage conversations for additional funding to help us recover our costs, because that's the driver, right? And I think it's super important to keep that front and center, so that legislators and policymakers and others are all recognizing the need to help invest in our state park system so we can do those things.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. All right. On that lovely note, any other any other comments or thoughts about any of this? This is an actionable item, so we do need to vote on this.
Chair, before we vote, we want to make sure that we've checked if there's any public comment. This was listed as public comment. Okay, great. Thank you.
I'm sure you will, but
yeah,
not today.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing none. I would entertain a motion to open rulemaking to amend OAR 736-015-0006 to 736-015-0040 for reservations, rates, and fee waivers.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Perillo. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Nope. Oh, who was that?
Quiet.
Commissioner Condor. Okay, great. All right. All those in favor of opening the rulemaking, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing no opposition, we have opened rulemaking. Approved. Okay, that ends the rulemaking section, and I think we are just moving on to reports. Is there anything we need to do under reports, or just allow commissioners to review their own pace?
Unless they had any questions, those are more consent for you to review.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. We do have one more item. It's the commission planning calendar for 2026. If folks have been able to take a look at that, those are the proposed dates. It looks like we don't have any actual locations at this point. We're still kind of under the governor's travel restriction guidance. We will likely have a couple, I assume, in person, but it's still to be determined at this point.
Thankfully, February has always been a virtual, or at least the last couple of years, just because of weather. So February will be virtual, and then we'll let Director Coons decide what you guys are gonna do for April.
Are there any questions about those dates, or does that seem to work for everybody?
And I will say, I forgot to mention earlier that you have Vicky Berger's replacement, Shane Griggs. She went through her Senate confirmation on Monday, and I think they vote today, so hopefully she'll make it through her confirmation and will be at the next meeting, but she also has the calendar, so unless any of you have conflicts, we'd love to approve this calendar. Betty's that one.
Yeah, there is a chance that I am not going to be able to make those dates in June, the 16th and 17th. But the other dates work for me.
Do we want to look at different dates in June just to make sure?
Yeah, I could do the week before, June 9th.
So I'll have Denise send it out and see if we can adjust June to make sure that everybody can be there.
Thank you.
Thanks for letting us know.
All right, so do we need to vote on this if we're going to adjust? Or should we just vote with potential?
Yeah, February. Yeah, February you can, yeah.
All right, I would take a motion to approve the 2026 calendars with the assumption that we may have changes to the June dates.
We'll move.
Thank you, Commissioner Barlow. Can I get a second?
Second.
Commissioner Izumi with the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. All right.
That was a weak movement because I think I double checked everything against my calendar, so already. Once I do.
Sounds good. Well, thank you all for being willing to join virtually for this meeting, and really great feedback. And Lisa, we're going to miss you. I hope we see you still, even though they're going to try to suck all of it out of you. And there's a lot of work over there.
A huge priority for me. So I just want to thank you guys because I know these decisions you're making right now are not easy. They're not fun. They're not, I'm sure as you go into the holidays, you'll have lots of dialogue with family and friends that are going to be like, what are you guys doing? But I think as my daughter pointed out to me last week, I was so worried about park fees. I guess I don't have to worry about that. It's much more controversial than what the world we're living in is. So just thank you all, because I know they're not fun things. And I know you didn't anticipate jumping on the commission to talk about rates and all the things that you've had to do this last year, but we would not be where we are budgetarily if you would not have agreed to these things, and we would be in the same spot as out at another agencies and having conversations about closures or layoffs. And so I just appreciate the effort, even though it's not fun. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to all the staff who's really going through it all, trying to turn over every rock to find savings and work through, these pieces, not only on the ground hearing from users and campers, but all the way up. So we know it's hard for you guys too, and we're all in this together, and we'll make it through. But thank you. Well, with that, we will go ahead and adjourn and see each other back, or I guess in February in 2026. So I hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving and wonderful holidays. And yeah, reach out if there's anything we can answer questions on in the meantime.